The night was cold, and the wind howled through the empty fields surrounding the narrow country road. Daniel Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel as he drove home after another long day at work. His old pickup truck rattled noisily, its engine groaning under the strain of years of use. He glanced at the dashboard clock. It was nearly midnight. All he wanted was to get back to his small house, eat something warm, and collapse onto his bed. Daniel lived alone in a modest neighborhood, just outside the city limits. Life hadn't been easy for him lately. At 34, he worked long hours as a mechanic at a local garage, fixing cars for people who often didn't appreciate his effort. His paycheck barely covered rent and bills, leaving little room for anything else. Still, he tried to stay positive. He had always believed that hard work would eventually pay off. But lately, even that belief felt like it was slipping away. As he rounded a bend in the road, something caught his eye. A flash of metal reflecting in the dim light of the moon. Slowing down, Daniel squinted through the windshield. There, off, to the side of the road was a car flipped upside down. Smoke rose from the wreckage, curling into the air like ghostly fingers. For a moment, Daniel hesitated. Should he stop? It wasn't safe out here. This road was rarely traveled, especially at this hour. What if someone was waiting to rob him or worse? But then he saw movement. Or thought he did. Was there someone inside the car? Shaking off his doubts, Daniel pulled over onto the shoulder and stepped out of his truck. The icy wind hit him immediately, biting at his face and hands. He grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment before walking cautiously toward the wreck. The closer he got, the more alarming the scene became. The car was a sleek, expensive model, the kind of vehicle he'd only seen in magazines or on TV. Its front end was crushed, and one of its tires lay several feet away, torn loose from the impact. Flames licked hungrily at the underside of the car, spreading slowly but steadily. Daniel's heart pounded as he approached, shining his flashlight through the shattered windows. Inside, slumped awkwardly against the seatbelt, was a woman. She looked unconscious, her blonde hair matted with blood. Her designer clothes were torn and she appeared badly injured. Without thinking twice, Daniel dropped to his knees beside the car. "Hey!" he called out, tapping gently on the window. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. Panic began to creep into Daniel's mind. He knew he couldn't leave her there, not with the fire growing stronger by the second. Summoning all his strength, he reached through the broken window and unbuckled her seatbelt. The woman slid forward limply, and Daniel carefully dragged her out of the car. Every movement sent fresh waves of heat washing over him, making sweat pour down his face despite the freezing temperature. Once she was clear of the vehicle, Daniel laid her down on the grass a safe distance away. He checked her breathing. It was shallow but steady. Relief washed over him, though only briefly. Turning back to look at the car, he realized the flames were now consuming the entire engine. Any longer, and both of them might have been trapped inside. Just then, headlights appeared in the distance. A truck sped toward them, skidding to a halt nearby. Two men jumped out, shouting questions and rushing to help. Daniel explained what had happened as they tended to the woman. One of the men called 911 while the other kept watch over her, ensuring she remained stable until paramedics arrived. It felt like hours passed before the flashing lights of emergency vehicles finally appeared. Firefighters rushed to contain the blaze while paramedics loaded the woman onto a stretcher. As they prepared to take her away, one of the medics turned to Daniel. "You saved her life," the man said simply. "Good job." Daniel nodded, too, exhausted to respond. Watching the ambulance drive off, he felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, pride, and a lingering sense of unease. Something about the whole situation felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Who was that woman? Why had she been driving alone on such a desolate road late at night? And why did he feel like this act of kindness might come back to haunt him? By the time Daniel returned home, the adrenaline had worn off, leaving him drained. He showered quickly, trying to wash away the smell of smoke and gasoline, but sleep eluded him. Lying in bed, he replayed the events of the evening over and over again in his mind. Little did he know, the repercussions of his actions were already beginning to unfold. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find his phone buzzing nonstop. Notifications poured in from social media apps he rarely used. Curious, he opened one of the messages and froze. Someone had filmed him rescuing the woman and posted the video online. In the span of a few hours, it had gone viral, racking up thousands of views and comments. People were calling him a hero, praising his bravery and selflessness. At first, Daniel didn't know how to react. Sure, it felt nice to be recognized for doing the right thing, but he also worried about the attention. Fame wasn't something he'd ever sought, and he couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get complicated. His fears proved justified when he arrived at work later that day. His boss, Mr. Harper, greeted him with a scowl. "What's this I hear about you playing hero last night?" Harper demanded, holding up his phone to show Daniel the viral video. "I wasn't playing hero," Daniel replied, confused. "I just did what anyone would have done," Harper snorted. "Well, whatever you did, it's caused nothing but trouble for us. Customers are talking, saying we don't need employees who go chasing after cameras instead of focusing on their jobs. You're fired." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Fired? For helping someone? He tried to protest, but Harper wouldn't listen. Defeated, Daniel gathered his belongings and left the garage, his mind racing. How could this happen? He had risked his life to save a stranger, and now he was being punished for it. Driving home, Daniel felt a deep sense of injustice settle over him. He had done the right thing, hadn't he? Yet here he was, unemployed and unsure of what the future held. As he parked in front of his house, he noticed a crowd gathering at the edge of his property. Reporters and camera crews lined the street, shouting questions at him as soon as he stepped out of his truck. Overwhelmed, Daniel retreated inside, closing the door firmly behind him. Sitting on the couch, he buried his face in his hands. The world outside seemed chaotic and cruel, but for now he just wanted to shut it all out. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and perhaps new opportunities. But tonight, all Daniel wanted was peace. The next day started much like any other for Daniel Carter, except for the fact that his life had completely changed overnight. After spending most of the morning avoiding calls from reporters and trying to process being fired, Daniel decided to step outside for some fresh air. He figured if he stayed cooped up indoors, he'd drive himself crazy, thinking about everything that had happened. But just as he opened the front door, the sound of distant rotors filled the air. At first, Daniel thought it was just a couple of news helicopters circling overhead again. They'd been buzzing around since yesterday, ever since the video of him rescuing the woman went viral. But then the noise grew louder, so loud that it drowned out even the chirping birds. Looking up, Daniel saw not one but two helicopters descending directly onto his front lawn. His jaw dropped as he stumbled backward, unsure of what to do. The helicopters landed with a thunderous roar, sending gusts of wind whipping through the trees and scattering leaves everywhere. Before Daniel could react, people began climbing out of the aircraft. One group consisted of men in dark suits and sunglasses, clearly bodyguards or security personnel. From the second helicopter emerged a woman who looked vaguely familiar. It took Daniel a moment to realize it was her, the woman he had saved from the burning car. She stepped forward slowly, supported by one of the guards. Her blonde hair was neatly styled now, though she still wore a neck brace and walked with a slight limp. Despite her injuries, there was an undeniable air of confidence about her. Dressed in a tailored pantsuit, she looked every bit the successful businesswoman she was rumored to be. As she approached, Daniel felt a mix of awe and discomfort. What was she doing here? Why had she come all this way? "Mr. Carter," she said when she reached the porch, her voice calm but firm. "I'm Laura Bennett." Daniel blinked, momentarily speechless. He hadn't known her name before now, but hearing it made everything feel even more surreal. "Ms. Bennett," he finally managed to say, nodding awkwardly. "You didn't have to come here." "I wanted to," Laura interrupted gently. "What you did for me last night, it meant more than I can put into words. I owe you my life." Her words caught Daniel off guard. He shifted uncomfortably, scratching the back of his head. I was just doing what anyone would have done, he muttered, repeating the same line he'd told the paramedics the night before. Laura shook her head firmly. No, Mr. Carter. Not everyone would have stopped. You risked your own safety to help someone you didn't even know. That's rare these days. Before Daniel could respond, the crowd of reporters gathered near the edge of his property sprang to life. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward, and questions rang out in rapid succession. Ms. Bennett, why are you here? Did you arrange this visit? Is Mr. Carter receiving compensation? Laura raised a hand to silence them. Please, she said, her tone commanding yet polite. This is a private matter. I'll address your questions later. Turning back to Daniel, she added softly, Let's go inside. We need to talk. Feeling numb, Daniel led Laura into his small living room. The space was tidy but sparsely furnished, reflecting his modest lifestyle. Laura took a seat on the couch while Daniel perched on the edge of an armchair across from her. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Outside, the noise from the reporters continued, but inside, the atmosphere was tense and heavy. Finally, Laura broke the silence. I heard about what happened at your job, she said, her expression sympathetic. Your boss fired you because of the attention surrounding the rescue, didn't he? Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, that's right. Guess he didn't like having a distraction around. Laura frowned, her lips pressing into a thin line. That's unacceptable. No one should lose their livelihood for doing the right thing. Well, it's not like I can do anything about it now, Daniel replied bitterly. It is what it is. To his surprise, Laura leaned forward, her eyes sharp and determined. Actually, you can. And you will. I won't stand by and let this injustice slide. Daniel stared at her, unsure of what she meant. What are you saying? I'm offering you a position with my company, Laura explained. We have a large fleet of vehicles and equipment that require regular maintenance. Someone with your skills would be invaluable to us. Plus, it's a stable job with benefits, a far cry from where you were before. For a moment, Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was she serious? Working for someone like Laura Bennett seemed like a dream too good to be true. But doubt crept in almost immediately. I appreciate the offer, Ms. Bennett, but I don't want charity. I just want to work hard and earn my keep. Laura smiled faintly. This isn't charity. It's an opportunity. Think about it. You'd be helping maintain machines that support charitable projects and initiatives worldwide. You'd still be making a difference, just in a different way. Her words struck a chord with Daniel. He had always prided himself on contributing to society, however small those contributions might seem. If working for Laura allowed him to continue doing that, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea after all. Still hesitant, Daniel asked, What about the media? Won't this make things worse? People already think I'm using this whole situation to get ahead. Laura nodded thoughtfully. I understand your concerns. Public perception can be tricky. But trust me, I'll handle the press. All I ask is that you focus on doing your best work. Leave the rest to me. Something about her confidence reassured Daniel. Though he wasn't entirely convinced, he found himself nodding slowly. Okay, he said. I'll think about it. Laura's smile widened. Good. Take your time. In the meantime, I'll ensure you're compensated for the financial strain caused by your sudden unemployment. Consider it a gesture of gratitude until you officially join us. As much as Daniel wanted to refuse, he knew he needed the help. Between rent, utilities, and groceries, his savings wouldn't last long. Reluctantly, he accepted her offer, though. He insisted on paying her back once he got back on his feet. By the time Laura left, escorted by her security team, Daniel's head was spinning. The whirlwind of events over the past 24 hours felt like something out of a movie. Helicopters landing on his lawn, a millionaire showing up at his door, and a job offer he never could have imagined, all because he had stopped to help a stranger in need. But as the excitement faded and the helicopters disappeared into the sky, reality set in. Life wouldn't magically fix itself overnight. Accepting Laura's offer was only the beginning. There would undoubtedly be challenges ahead, both personal and professional. Yet for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to turn around. Daniel's first day at Laura Bennett's estate felt surreal. After accepting her offer, he had spent the weekend preparing himself mentally for the drastic change in his life. The job wasn't just about fixing cars anymore. It was about stepping into an entirely new world, one where wealth and privilege shaped every detail of daily life. As he drove through the gates of Laura's sprawling property on Monday morning, Daniel couldn't help but feel out of place. The main building was more like a mansion than an office, with manicured lawns stretching endlessly in all directions. To the side stood a massive garage, its doors wide open to reveal rows of gleaming luxury vehicles. This was where Daniel would be working, alongside a team of professionals who seemed far more experienced and confident than he did. When he entered the garage, he was greeted by Emma Riley, a friendly woman in her late 20s who worked as Laura's assistant. She introduced herself with a warm smile and handed him a clipboard. "Welcome aboard," she said cheerfully. "I'll show you around and introduce you to everyone." Emma led Daniel through the facility, explaining how things operated. There were several mechanics already hard at work, their movements precise and efficient. One of them, a tall man named Ryan Hayes, paused to shake Daniel's hand. "Heard a lot about you," Ryan said with a grin. "Saving millionaires from burning." "Cars, that's impressive," Daniel chuckled nervously. "It's not as exciting as it sounds," he replied. But deep down, he appreciated the camaraderie. For the first time in days, he felt like maybe he belonged here after all. Over the next few hours, Emma walked Daniel through his responsibilities. He'd primarily focus on maintaining Laura's fleet of vehicles, ensuring they were always in top condition. From sleek sports cars to rugged SUVs, each vehicle required meticulous care. Though Daniel had worked on similar models before, the scale of this operation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. As the morning wore on, Daniel grew more comfortable in his surroundings. The other mechanics were friendly and eager to share tips and advice. Ryan, in particular, took him under his wing, showing him shortcuts and tricks that made the work easier. By lunchtime, Daniel found himself laughing along with the group, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. After lunch, Emma approached him again, this time with a serious expression. "Laura wants to see you," she said. "She's in the main house." Nervous but curious, Daniel followed Emma across the grounds to the mansion. Inside, the interior was as grand as the exterior, with marble floors, chandeliers, and artwork lining the walls. Laura waited for him in a cozy study, seated behind a desk cluttered with papers and files. "Daniel," she said warmly as he entered. "How's your first day going?" "It's been good," Daniel replied honestly. "Everyone's been really helpful." Laura nodded approvingly. "I'm glad to hear that. Now, I wanted to talk to you about something important. You've probably noticed that my company doesn't just deal with cars. We're involved in various charitable projects around the world. Many of these initiatives rely on transportation, whether it's delivering supplies or providing mobility for volunteers." Daniel listened intently, intrigued by what she was saying. "So you're saying my work here contributes to those efforts?" he asked. "Exactly," Laura confirmed. "Every vehicle we maintain plays a role in making our project successful. It might seem small, but trust me, your contributions matter. I want you to take pride in knowing that you're helping people, even if it's indirectly." Her words resonated deeply with Daniel. For so long, he'd struggled to find meaning in his work, feeling like he was stuck in a dead-end job with no real purpose. But now hearing Laura explain how his skills could make a difference gave him a renewed sense of motivation. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel settled into his new routine. He quickly became an integral part of the team, earning respect for his dedication and expertise. His relationship with Emma also grew stronger. She often joined him during breaks, chatting about everything from work to hobbies. Her kindness and easygoing nature made her a comforting presence, and Daniel found himself looking forward to their conversations. One afternoon, While working on a particularly challenging repair, Ryan leaned against a nearby car and glanced at Daniel thoughtfully. "You know," he said casually, "you've got a lot of guts." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked, wiping grease from his hands. "I mean, coming here after everything that happened. Most people would have folded under the pressure. But you're handling it like a pro." Daniel shrugged modestly. "I didn't have much of a choice. I needed a fresh start." Ryan grinned. "Well, I think you made the right call. Laura doesn't bring just anyone onto her team. She sees something special in you." The comment caught Daniel off guard. Special? He had never considered himself extraordinary. If anything, he'd always seen himself as average, a guy just trying to get by. Yet the way Ryan spoke made him wonder if perhaps he was capable of more than he realized. Despite the progress he was making, Daniel still faced challenges. Rumors about him continued to circulate online, fueled by jealous critics who accused him of exploiting the rescue for personal gain. Some of his old friends distanced themselves, believing the negative press. Even strangers occasionally approached him when he went out, questioning his motives or demanding explanations. It weighed heavily on Daniel, especially during quiet moments when self-doubt crept in. One evening after a long day at work, he confided in Emma. They sat together on a bench outside the garage, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I don't know how much longer I can handle this," Daniel admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. "People won't stop talking about me like I'm some kind of fraud." Emma placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Don't let them get to you," she said softly. "You know the truth, and that's what matters. Anyone who judges you based on rumors doesn't deserve your energy." Her words brought a measure of comfort, but Daniel knew overcoming the negativity wouldn't be easy. Still, he resolved to stay focused on his work and prove his worth through actions rather than words. By the end of his first month, Daniel had transformed not only his career but also his outlook on life. The support of his colleagues, combined with Laura's faith in him, gave him the confidence to face whatever came next. Though challenges remained, he felt ready to tackle them head-on. As he locked up the garage one evening, Daniel paused to look back at the mansion bathed in golden twilight. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful, not just about his future, but about the impact he could have on the world around him. Saving Laura hadn't just changed her life, it had changed his too, opening doors he never imagined possible. And, though the road ahead was uncertain, Daniel knew one thing for sure: he was finally moving in the right direction. As weeks turned into months, Daniel Carter began to feel more at home in his new role at Laura Bennett's estate. He had earned the respect of his colleagues, built a strong working relationship with Ryan, and even found himself growing closer to Emma. Life seemed to be falling into place for the first time in years. But despite the progress he'd made, shadows of doubt lingered, not just from outsiders but also within the walls of Laura's company. It started subtly. At first, it was small comments here and there. Some of Laura's business associates questioned why she had gone out of her way to hire Daniel. "He's just a mechanic," one of them said during a casual conversation over coffee. "Why give him so much attention?" Others speculated about ulterior motives, suggesting that Laura was using Daniel's story as a publicity stunt to boost her image. These whispers reached Daniel eventually, though not directly. Emma overheard them and warned him to brace himself for potential backlash. Then came the online rumors. Blogs and social media accounts began publishing articles questioning Daniel's integrity. Headlines like, "Local Mechanic Exploits Millionaire Rescue for Fame," and "Was it all an act?" The truth behind Daniel Carter's heroics spread like wildfire. Comment sections filled with accusations, ranging from claims that he staged the rescue to suggestions that he blackmailed Laura into giving him a job. The negativity grew louder, drowning out any praise or support he had received earlier. Daniel tried to ignore it all, focusing instead on his work. But the constant scrutiny took its toll. Strangers approached him at gas stations and grocery stores, demanding explanations or hurling insults. Even some of his old acquaintances distanced themselves believing the lies circulating online. It felt like no matter how hard he worked or how honest he remained, people refused to see him for who he truly was. One afternoon, the tension reached a breaking point. Laura called Daniel to attend a meeting at the main house, a rare request that immediately set off alarm bells in his mind. When he arrived, he found himself standing in a large conference room surrounded by Laura's top executives. They sat around a sleek glass table, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The air was thick with unease. Laura stood at the head of the table, her demeanor calm but firm. "Thank you all for coming," she began, addressing the group. "I wanted to address some concerns that have been raised regarding Daniel's employment here." Before she could continue, one of the executives interrupted. "With all due respect, Laura, we need to talk about this openly. Hiring someone based solely on a viral incident sets a dangerous precedent. What message does it send to our employees? That they can gain favor through dramatic acts rather than merit?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Another executive chimed in, pointing a finger at Daniel. "And what about the public perception? People are already questioning your judgment. Do you really want to risk damaging the company's reputation further?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably, feeling like a spotlight had been trained on him. His hands clenched into fists beneath the table, but he forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't the first time he'd faced criticism, but being attacked in such a formal setting felt humiliating. Laura listened patiently as each person voiced their concerns. When the room finally fell silent, she spoke again, her voice steady and authoritative. "I understand your worries," she said. "But let me make one thing clear. Daniel earned his place here. Yes, I hired him because he saved my life, but I kept him because of his skill, dedication, and character. Those qualities are invaluable, and anyone who doubts that hasn't taken the time to get to know him." Her defense brought a measure of relief to Daniel, but the tension in the room remained palpable. One of the executives leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "Even if that's true, Laura, you have to admit this situation has caused complications. Investors are nervous. Partners are hesitant. We can't afford to let emotions cloud our decisions." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We can't ignore the impact this has had. But neither can we turn our backs on someone who embodies the values we claim to stand for. If anything, Daniel's presence here is a reminder of why we do what we do. To help people, regardless of circumstances." The argument continued for nearly an hour, with both sides presenting their cases. Daniel stayed quiet throughout, unsure of how to contribute. By the end of the meeting, no definitive resolution had been reached. However, Laura made it clear that she wouldn't reconsider her decision to keep him on staff. As the executives filed out of the room, many shot Daniel wary glances, leaving him feeling more isolated than ever. Later that evening, Emma found Daniel sitting alone in the garage, staring blankly at a half-finished project. She pulled up a stool beside him and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I feel like no matter what I do, people will always find a way to criticize me. Maybe they're right. I shouldn't have accepted this job. Maybe I'm just making things worse for everyone." Emma shook her head firmly. "Don't say that. You've done nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. The problem isn't you, it's the people who refuse to see past their own biases." Her words brought a flicker of reassurance, but Daniel still struggled to shake off the weight of the day's events. Over the next few days, he threw himself into his work, determined to prove his worth once and for all. If actions couldn't silence the doubters, then maybe results would. His chance came sooner than expected. Laura's company was hosting a major charity gala at the estate, attended by donors, partners, and members of the press. The event relied heavily on logistics, including transportation for guests and equipment for presentations. Everything had to run smoothly. Any technical failure could tarnish the company's reputation. On the morning of the gala, disaster struck. One of the luxury shuttles transporting VIP guests broke down en route to the venue. Panic ensued as calls poured in from the stranded passengers. Back at the estate, Daniel and Ryan sprang into action. They loaded tools into a van and raced to the scene, arriving just as tensions were reaching a boiling point. Without hesitation, Daniel dove under the hood of the shuttle, diagnosing the issue with remarkable speed. It was a complex problem, a faulty fuel injector coupled with a damaged sensor. But Daniel's expertise allowed him to pinpoint the root cause almost immediately. Working alongside Ryan, he repaired the shuttle in record time, ensuring the guests arrived at the gala with only minor delays. By the time they returned to the estate, word of Daniel's heroics had already spread. Laura personally thanked him in front of the entire staff, praising his quick thinking and professionalism. Even some of the skeptical executives softened their stance, acknowledging the critical role he had played in salvaging the event. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky above the estate, Daniel stood quietly to the side, watching the festivities unfold. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of peace. The road ahead might still be challenging, but he knew he had proven himself, not just to others but to himself as well. Though the shadows of doubt hadn't completely disappeared, Daniel realized something important. He couldn't control what other people thought of him. All he could do was stay true to his values and keep moving forward. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and celebration, he felt hopeful about the future. The charity gala marked a turning point for Daniel Carter. His quick actions during the shuttle breakdown not only saved the event but also earned him newfound respect among Laura's associates. For the first time, many of them began to see him not as an outsider or a liability, but as a valuable member of the team. Though the negative rumors hadn't completely disappeared, they lost their sting in the face of undeniable proof of Daniel's competence and dedication. In the weeks following the gala, Daniel noticed subtle changes around him. Some of the executives who had been skeptical before now greeted him with polite nods or brief smiles. Even strangers who recognized him in public started approaching him differently, not with accusations, but with gratitude for his role in supporting Laura's charitable work. It wasn't universal acceptance, but it was progress, and Daniel chose to focus on the positives rather than dwell on lingering negativity. Laura, too, seemed more determined than ever to champion Daniel's cause. She called him into her office one afternoon, her expression serious yet hopeful. "I've been thinking," she said as he took a seat across from her desk. "Your story has inspired so many people, both inside and outside the company. But there are still countless others facing injustice like you did. I want to do something about that." Daniel frowned, unsure where she was going with this. "What do you mean?" "I'm starting a foundation," Laura explained. "Its purpose will be to support individuals who have faced unfair treatment because of situations beyond their control. People who stood up for what was right even when it cost them dearly. And I'd like you to be its spokesperson." The weight of her words hit Daniel like a wave. Him, a spokesperson? He had never imagined himself in such a role. "I don't know if I'm the right person for that," he admitted hesitantly. "Public speaking isn't exactly my thing." "You don't have to be perfect," Laura reassured him. "All you need to do is share your story, the struggles, the doubts, the triumphs. That's enough to inspire others. Besides, I'll be here every step of the way to guide you." Though still uncertain, Daniel agreed to consider the idea. Over the next few days, he discussed it with Emma, who encouraged him to take the leap. "This could be your chance to make a real difference," she said enthusiastically. "Think about how many lives you could touch by sharing what you've been through." With Emma's support and Laura's guidance, Daniel decided to accept the role. The announcement came during another high-profile event hosted by Laura's company. This time, Daniel found himself standing on a stage, a microphone in hand, addressing a room full of elegantly dressed attendees. As he looked out at the sea of faces, his heart raced. Public speaking terrified him, but he reminded himself why he was doing this, to help others who might feel as lost and powerless as he once had. Taking a deep breath, Daniel began. "When I stopped to help Laura Bennett that night, I didn't think twice about it. It was just the right thing to do. But afterward, my life changed in ways I never expected. I lost my job, faced criticism from people I didn't even know, and questioned whether I'd made the wrong choice. Through all of that, though, I learned something important. Kindness doesn't always come with rewards, at least not right away. Sometimes it comes with challenges. But if we stick to our values and keep moving forward, good things can happen. His voice grew stronger as he continued, sharing details of his journey, from losing his old job to finding purpose in his new one. He spoke candidly about the difficulties he faced and the lessons he learned along the way. By the end of his speech, the room erupted in applause. Many in the audience wiped away tears, moved by his honesty and resilience. Backstage after the event, Laura embraced him warmly. "You were amazing," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "You're going to change so many lives with this foundation." Emma joined them moments later, grinning from ear to ear. "See? I told you you could do it," she teased lightly, nudging his arm. Daniel chuckled, feeling a mix of relief and accomplishment. For the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere, not just as a mechanic or an employee, but as someone capable of making a difference. As the weeks passed, the foundation gained momentum. Stories poured in from across the country of people who had faced similar injustices. Some had been fired for reporting unsafe working conditions. Others had suffered retaliation for standing up against discrimination. Each story reinforced Daniel's belief that the foundation was needed, and that he was meant to play a role in its success. At the same time, his relationship with Emma continued to grow. Their shared experiences had brought them closer together, and Daniel found himself looking forward to spending time with her outside of work. They often went for walks in the evenings, talking about everything from their dreams to their fears. One night, as they sat side by side under the stars, Daniel realized something important. He cared about Emma deeply, perhaps more than he had let himself admit. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if none of this had happened?" Emma asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "Yeah, sometimes, but honestly, I'm glad it did. Sure, it was hard, but it led me here. To this place, these opportunities, and, well, you." Emma smiled softly, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Me too," she murmured. "I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be." By the end of the year, Daniel's life had transformed in ways he could never have predicted. He had gone from struggling to make ends meet to becoming a symbol of hope for countless others. The foundation thrived under his leadership, offering grants, legal assistance, and advocacy for those in need. Meanwhile, his bond with Emma blossomed into something deeper, hinting at the possibility of a future together. Reflecting on everything that had happened, Daniel couldn't help but marvel at how drastically his life had changed. What had started as a simple act of kindness on a deserted road had set off a chain reaction, leading him to places he'd never dreamed of. Though challenges remained, he faced them with renewed confidence, knowing he wasn't alone. One evening, as he stood on the porch of his modest home watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace. Life was unpredictable, full of twists and turns that no one could foresee. Yet amid the chaos, moments of clarity emerged, reminders that even in the darkest times, light could break through. And for Daniel Carter, that light had come in the form of courage, compassion, and community. He didn't know what the future held, but he was ready to embrace it, one day at a time.